And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I guess. Hi there, and welcome everybody to what we call Cast Iron Wednesday. But before I get into my usual weekly speech, there are two things I need to do right now because I'm kind of like on a timer here. And number one would be to take a pan out of the oven. So let's make sure we've got a view here. Here we are. And let's get this out right now. Haha. There you go. So, how do you like our pumpkin pie, folks? And I think maybe it looks a little bit underdone at this point, don't you think? And the other is I need to turn the oven up to 450. So as soon as I'm done with that and the oven is heating up, then I can get to the usual introduction. Start. There we go. Okay, and much better, I guess. Anyway, get this up a little bit. There we go, so you can see that too. That should do. Hi there. Welcome, as we said before, to what we call Cast Iron Wednesday. And this, of course, is a tradition that we do on Wednesday. Not just this group, not just this particular channel, but a number of cooking channels on YouTube do a cast iron video on Wednesday. Usually it would be cooking in cast iron or cleaning or restoring or identifying cast iron. Basically, we have a lot of fun on Wednesdays, and that's why we call it Cast Iron Wednesday. I've been doing this now for more than 2 years, and somehow people have been interested enough that you folks keep showing up here week after week, and I very much appreciate it as always. Hello to all of my friends here, folks whose names I've seen before. Hello, Jose Latias and Rick Stumbaugh, Cynthia Wesley, William Hurt, and so many others. It's always nice to see you folks showing up here. And hello, Cast Iron Fanatic, and oh man, quite a few names here. Hippie Longshanks, Roadside Assistance Guy, Clico, Terry Sinchap, and even Peg Tooth. Hello, Pat Z, Eric T, and everybody else. And once again, this is Cast Iron Wednesday. So I did some of my prep work in advance, especially so that I wouldn't waste everybody's time doing things like mixing and kneading the dough and so forth, so that this should go a little more smoothly, I hope. And what I've done is about an hour ago, in fact, I took this pie pumpkin here, stuck it in this number 7 size BSR cast iron skillet, and just stuck the whole thing in the oven. As you can see, this was done without having to cut up the pumpkin at all. This, I found out, is about the easiest way to roast a pumpkin in preparation for using it, whether it's making a pie or anything else. It sure saves the trouble of trying to cut a raw pumpkin out and risk injuring yourself and who knows what else, as well as having all those pumpkin guts flying around. I'm just waiting for this to cool off for about a minute or so, and we will cut this up, and you can see how, and we'll see how difficult it is to cook a cut up a roasted pumpkin, because then that way all we'll have to do is mash it, and it will go into our pumpkin pie, which is what this other pan here is. I prepared a dough in advance. This is actually different from your typical store-bought dough. A lesson I learned years ago is that, as shocking as it may sound, different type of pies go best with different types of crusts. Who'd have thought that? And while a generic store-bought pie crust works just fine, for this recipe here, I put together something of a sweet, crumbly crust, in that when this is all finished baking, it's going to have one of those crisp, crunchy crusts, not exactly like a graham cracker, but there's probably a similarity to it, and that will go very well with a pumpkin pie. And furthermore, I did this especially so that it would fit into this number 10 sized Griswold number 10 skillet here, which is about 11 and a half inches in size. basically, this is enough recipe to make 2 pies. And in this case, I simply took those two together and put them into one pan here because oh good, it's already up to 450. I like that because, as I said, this is going to be something of a monster pie, and that in it, of course, is what is necessary for Halloween. Um, just mixed the dough out and greased it with shortening, and then with my fingers pressed the dough all the way up the sides of the pan. I'm about to bake this for 10 minutes now at 450 degrees. This top is actually going to shrink a little bit because as this thing bakes very quickly, it is going to dry out. It's not going to be completely cooked in 10 minutes, but baked or whatever. But it will be enough so that it will be solid enough to hold the pie, the pie filling. So let's get this into the oven. Nice and fast. And if folks would be kind enough to set your timers here. It is 8:06. So at 8:16, that comes out of the oven. All right. So it's an interesting way to start our cast iron Wednesday, I hope. But again, I'm trying to get this done so that it should not take up the entire. Did I goof? Holy crap! Let me make sure here. Oh, nuts! I goofed. Well, now I can only hope it works right. I just realized I forgot a crucial ingredient here in this pie crust. It's always something, isn't it? Specifically, I took the time to melt a whole stick of butter, and I forgot to include that in the crust. I did actually use extra water to make the crust hold up, so it'll probably work out okay. So, well, it's too late now, unfortunately. All I can do is hope it works out. Well, even if it doesn't, I'm going to make sure at least that the pie turns out all right. Something always happens, I know. Oh, well, what can we do? Well, we can just keep plugging along. However, as I mentioned before, the other thing, though, is I learned that the easiest way to roast a pumpkin is to do exactly what I did here. Let me stick this thing over here. As I said, I took a pie pumpkin, just put the whole thing in this number 7 size cast iron pan, did not cut it or poke it or anything like that, just preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and I've roasted it for a little bit more than an hour. So that should make it a lot easier for this to, for us to bring this apart here. So, got myself a nice little boning knife here, nice and sharp, and this shows you. Boy, you know how difficult it is to cut these things up when they're raw and unroasted. There we go, just like that. I just realized I need to put someplace. Well, I guess I'll just stick this in the trash. And then from here, let's struggle with this pumpkin and boy, see how difficult it is going to be to carve this. You know how many people struggle with their saws and knives and all sorts of other things trying to cut up a pumpkin here? Yeah, as I said, when making things like a pumpkin pie, well, as you can see, this sure is difficult, isn't it? Boy, I'm sure having a lot of trouble cutting up this pie here. That's why I'm really happy with this method here. The only problem is, of course, it's hot, and I don't want to risk burning my fingers. But nonetheless, oh yeah, there's a nice part about the brown bits here. That's the other thing. This is a squash, and quite frankly, oh yeah, the skin is edible. In fact, when I first put this recipe for, I need to get another bowl. Let me quickly, all right, this one will do. When I first put this recipe for pumpkin pie together, boy, it's been 10 years. I just simply, after removing the pumpkin guts, like I'm trying to do now, actually I need a spoon to scoop this out. I keep forgetting things. There we are. Here's a spoon. After I scoop these pumpkin guts out, come on. The real problem is simply that it's hot. But after getting these pumpkin guts out, my first version of the recipe, I just simply mashed up the whole thing, skin and all, and used it in the pie. And frankly, I liked it. Pumpkin skin is just squash, and I think there's no problem at all with eating the skin. Unfortunately, when I served it to folks, they were turned off by the fact that they would find these little pieces of skin in the pie because they were simply not used to it. I mean, I for one did not have any problem with the taste or eating this, but they were just not used to it. And so finally, because enough people said that it made them uncomfortable, I had to redo the recipe and take out the part where you leave the skins on. That's why now you just have to you just have to scrape the you have to remove the skin, but look how hard it is to remove the skin too. So as you can see, this part here is really not difficult at all, and this is why I recommend if you're going to do a whole pumpkin, or if you're going to actually roast your own pumpkin for whether it's a pumpkin pie or anything else, this is the method I recommend because it is so much easier than trying to cut these things up while they're still raw. And let me just take a moment, please. I will check comments again in just a minute or so. You can see I have a little bit of work to do, but I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can, which simply means getting rid of these pumpkin guts here. And yeah, look how difficult it is to scrape out the guts from this pumpkin now that it's roasted here. This is so much easier. Also, because it's a squash, this thing tastes pretty good too. Come on. Yeah, me and my big mouth. Okay, well, there's another one. I am trying to get this done as quickly as possible so that we can get back to the cast iron, which of course is what folks are here for. Let's cut this one out. I think I know what I'll do. I'll just cut these things out here and then move these to another bowl for the time being. Come on. Yeah, because again, I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can, largely because this is a live video and I don't want to waste too much of your time. So I appreciate your patience as we do this here. Scrape this out a little bit more with a spoon. Oh yeah, and am I burning my fingers doing this? Well, yes, actually I am. So as I said, it's because I'm trying to do this live and as fast as I can. And you know what happens when you rush. Here we are. Here's another dish that we can put these prepared pumpkins in. Okay, here's one. Oh, ouch, 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 ouch. Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. Oh, the things I do. Ugh. Come on. All right, let's get this one here. Remove that seed. Sorry, I apologize yet again for the delay. But eventually this part will be finished. In fact, it's almost finished now. So again, thank you for your patience. Anyway, once this is done and the skin is removed, all I have to do is mash all this up into a pumpkin puree. Yeah, originally when I put the recipe together, I did it in a manner where you don't even need a mixer. So this is all going to be, there we go, done by hand. A couple more seeds here. Let me scrape this. Okay, let me quickly scrape this into the trash, and I will check your comments. So thank you for your patience, everybody. Sure is a good thing now. Each week I've been enjoying this wireless mic for precisely this reason, that I can still keep talking at you while I'm standing over here on the other side of the kitchen. sound you're hearing is just that, again, that pan here. Okay, there's one, there's another, 3. But anyway, despite my making a little bit of a mess, I mean, you can see how long this took. I mean, it only took a few minutes to cut this roasted pumpkin apart and remove the seeds. Much easier, again, than it normally would take. Let me check my hands here. And then, as promised, let's see what snarky comments people have said so far. And yes, I do encourage the snarky comments. It helps keep you entertained. So, okay. Thank you for waiting, everybody. So anyway, thank you again. Hello, everybody, to Huggy Bear and Handsome Stone and so many others. Jose Latias. I never prepared a pumpkin before, although I was in elementary. We made pumpkin seeds. The butter is mainly for moisture and flavor. Yeah, that's most likely the case, or Joseph Ortiz. So I did use extra water in the crust, so it should probably work. Oh, it's 8:16. Okay, I've got one. I better take that crust out. There we go. So that means, and once we do that, all I'll have to do is turn the oven down a little bit. Oh yeah, look at this. After 10 minutes in the oven, here's what it looks like. Ow. Ow, ow, ow. Damn, that's hot. Okay, anyway, here's what it looks like. So that's already, yeah, it's already puffed up because I did use not shortening. What do you call it? Baking powder. Duh, that's it. I used baking powder in the crust, so that means it actually expanded a little bit. So this will help, of course, to brace the crust and allow it to. It will be able to hold the pie filling better. As I mentioned, once we're done with the pie filling, we just pour it back in and then it will go back into the oven. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Lower the temperature from 450 to 425 degrees. And yeah, if you've seen the recipe that I put together, it will, what we're going to do is we're going to bake this at 425 for 15 minutes. And then after that, we're going to lower the heat to your typical 350 and then bake it for another 60 minutes. Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean. I like the skin. I'm actually going to eat that skin. Anyway, so as I said, hello to everybody. I take some of the butter. Yeah. We'll take some of the butter and brush it in and let it soak a small amount. Hey, that's a pretty good idea right there. Okay, I think I will do that. That's why I'm glad I am trying to read those comments, because that's a pretty darn good idea. Basting brush. Let's get this here. Fortunately, this pan is cooled off where I can hold this in my hands. And let's just baste a little bit of this on. Since this is a pumpkin pie, it is not going to have an upper crust, so it's not like I'm going to have to do an egg wash on the top of the pie. But yeah, I like this idea a lot. Thank you very much for the suggestion. Because I did actually include some brown sugar in the crust, because I don't like a tasteless crust. I would rather have a crust you can enjoy. But this is certainly going to help. So thank you again for that suggestion. There we go. Anyway, other than that, what else do we have here? Now we have chaos, don't we always? Hello, Debbie. Debbie said she's having some connection problems tonight. Okay, anyway, listen, as I said, that's how easy it is to prepare a pumpkin. And if you have the time and the ambition, I would indeed recommend it. John Agon, I use a Benchmade Superfruit for cutting tough stuff such as squash. As you can see, this squash was a lot easier to cut when it was roasted. So I wonder if you What if you puree it in a blender? You could certainly do that at this point. My problem is that I still don't have a working blender. After I ruined my Ninja last year, I never did replace it. Every blender or food processor I've ever owned has broken after only a few uses. So I've been really kind of reluctant to invest in another one, I'm afraid. So, try an alternate sweetener to taste. Pumpkin is pretty sweet on its own. Yes, it is. It's pierogi wheat. Well, this isn't exactly a pierogi. My apologies for that. Why does everyone throw away the jack-o'-lantern if you can cook it and eat it afterwards? Well, the jack-o'-lantern, if you put a live candle in it, of course, the candle is going to get some paraffin wax, candle wax, onto the insides of the pumpkin. So that might be one reason why. I put the squash through a potato ricer to get rid of the lumps. Get a Vitamix. Well, that they do cost money, unfortunately. So this weekend I found out my BSR number 10 Dutch oven is a spinner. Oh, my condolences, Huggy Bear. But I would say keep on using it. That's the most important thing. Val's Black Cat Tools. I've been disappointed with a lot of pumpkin pie recipes, so I created my own. Well, good. If it works, then definitely that's the one to use. And that's exactly what I did as well. This recipe, I actually put this recipe together 10 years ago. Good God, it's been 10 years already? But yes, I put it together and I've made a number of pies with it, and I am quite happy with how it turned out as a result. Okay, I think I'm going to just start mashing this right now to save us some time here. Yeah. May actually, there's an idea. Maybe I'll mix in some of the butter with this just to make it a little more moist, because it looks like it's kind of cooled off in these last few minutes or so. So I want to be sure this is good, soft pumpkin mash. There we go. Now, as I mentioned in my original recipe, I left the skins on. Oh, there are a few seeds in there still. I have to pull out too. And while I liked it, as I said, people didn't like the pieces of skin that they found in. I remember one person asking me, did I use shredded carrots in this? Because she thought those pieces of skin were actually carrot pieces. So, who knows? Maybe that might even work. But I've never tried it myself. Okay. There we go. Anyway, doing it this way here, I can get most of the meat off the skin. It's cool to the point, at least, where I am now not burning my fingers as I do this. Thank goodness. So yeah, this is actually cooling pretty fast, and I guess that's why I think I had better maybe mix in a little bit of that butter just to moisten this up. Because, well, obviously, since I don't have a Vitamix, I'm afraid I will have to use an old-fashioned masher here. Did I get all the pieces? Nope, there's one more piece. Okay, let's get this one off. Anyway, but it's still a lot easier, as you can see, than trying to cut these things up before they are roasted. Furthermore, I seem to be getting almost all of the pumpkin meat too. And yeah, because all I'm taking off is the skin. So we are still doing pretty good here. Have to get rid of these seeds, unfortunately. So it's a good thing I washed my hands, because probably the easiest way to do it is just the old-fashioned way. There we go. So what can I say? I'm very proud of this pumpkin pie recipe nonetheless. I have not entered it into any contest, but I probably should. I mean, I've said before, there are some recipes that I would proud to have as my signature recipes, so that ones that I would be pleased to put my name on. And this pumpkin pie recipe was one of my first, and as I said, it's one that I'm proud of. I really enjoy this pumpkin pie recipe. I really enjoy my Boston baked beans recipe, my apple pie recipe as well. and my roast turkey. But I think probably, well, no, I'd say the Boston baked beans would be number one. I would like to best be known for, if I may sound a little bit egotistical. And I think that's the last seed. So, okay. Now, per your suggestion, I think I will indeed, careful, pour in a little bit of this butter. That's probably enough. I had melted a stick, so that might be maybe about 3 tablespoons worth. Oh yeah, that's definitely getting it nice and moist now. So this is more of a consistency that I want, so that we've got ourselves a mash here. And once we do this, we will be able to make a pie with it. A rustic pie, I guess you could call it, since I'm afraid I don't have a blender and I can't really puree this. However, as I said, I have made this recipe before with mash, with pumpkin mash, exactly the way I'm doing it now. And I can only reassure you that I'm confident it is going to come out okay. Yes, I know, despite the fact that, yeah, I've had some chaos already, and I have indeed made some mistakes, and you've seen some of my mistakes. Still trying to get these damn seeds out. But because, again, I've made this before, I'm really not especially worried. Meanwhile, that I would say we have just about the right amount, maybe about 1.5 cups of this pumpkin mash, which is exactly what we need for our pie. In which case, then, I can just as easily use this bowl and mix it up. There we go. One more piece of skin. Nom nom nom. Oh yeah, especially since with the butter. Told you I love squash skin. In fact, you may have seen I posted a short video on YouTube just today, in which I made a mashed potatoes with pumpkin, and it's one of the easiest recipes you might hope to make in cast iron or otherwise, because you just throw in pumpkin pieces with your potatoes, mash them up, and boil them and mash them in the same way you would do mashed potatoes. And you will have some pumpkin to go along with it. Okay, finally, that means I better get this knife out of the way. Okay, one more look at the comments, and then let's get down to it. My wife, BP Diva, my wife is fussy about pumpkin pie, and she loves the rehydrated version. Rehydrated? Do you mean refrigerated or rehydrated? Actually, I'm not familiar with that. Where did you get your masher? I got it off of Amazon, in fact. I believe this is from Winco, that famous maker of restaurant supplies. It definitely, it's Asian, but the story of my masher was that I got tired of my cheap little mashers breaking again and again. And while I'm talking, let me check the recipe, and I think, so that I don't make any more mistakes, let's start adding in ingredients. And that would be 4 eggs. Get this out of the way. Actually, I can put the eggshells in there. Okay. Anyway, as I said, I got tired of my cheap mashers breaking again and again and again. So I finally decided to look and get myself an industrial strength masher of the kind that they use in restaurants. And me being a cheapskate, I did not want to pay a huge amount of money for a potato masher. So after looking on Amazon, I came across one sold by Winco, and it said it was 4 inches. And so I thought, okay, that means it's probably 4 inches, total in length, and that would have served me just fine. So I ordered it, and it really wasn't expensive either. So that means I was doing pretty good. And then when that monster showed up in my mail, I was kind of taken off guard. I was not expecting to see something as huge as that. because 4 inches was not 4 inches in length, but 4 inches in width. It was, that thing is 4 inches wide, and it's probably like 1.5 feet long. However, it does its job well. It mashes potatoes. Here's one more seed. And so because of that, well, I kept it and I use it. So even though it looks like, as Shrek says, do you think he's compensating for something? I can only say that I like this masher and I have no reason to get rid of it. By the way, look at this, just mixing in the eggs. This looks a little better already. So now, a little bit more of the skin. Okay, we've got 1.5 cups of pumpkin puree. And as I said, all I used was one probably medium-sized pod pumpkin. Only one. That was all we needed here. Then from here, we've got this part I already mixed up in advance. 1.5 cups of granulated sugar and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Plop. Yay for prep work. As the French say, mise en place. And no, that butter was definitely not for this part of the recipe, so I'm still doing all right. Okay. And from here, we've got 1/2 teaspoon now for our spices, which is simply cinnamon, nutmeg, and ground ginger. Just in the last couple of weeks or so, I did start doing something I should have done a long time ago, and that was grinding my own spices. Because, yeah, even though anybody who grinds their own spices will tell you the difference is fantastic. I finally started grinding nutmeg, for instance, for the first time, and now that I've done that, I'm never ever going to use the powdered nutmeg in the canisters ever again. The difference is, again, amazing, and furthermore, using a microplane, I think that nutmeg was probably the easiest thing I've ever grated. I'm more used to a struggle for doing things like grating cheese or other wet things with a grater, and using something as dry and hard as a nutmeg. I was amazed at how easy it was. Not to mention, as I said, the incredible bold flavor you get from it. Likewise, I used a spice grinder and ground up cinnamon sticks. And yeah, so there's definitely going to be some flavor in this pie, that's for sure. Okay, then from here, now we get in 1 cup of heavy cream and 1 cup of milk. The difference here is for consistency more than anything else. I mean, I suppose you could use 2 cups of milk or 2 cups of cream. Though, of course, with everything being more expensive these days, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to simply mix them, give them these separate amounts. So, 1 cup of, sorry, forgot to shake it. In this case, I got heavy cream. Usually I get whipping cream because it's a little cheaper. And I have yet to see any real difference in these recipes between whipping cream and heavy cream. So there is 1 cup of cream. And then from there, 1 cup of milk. And of course, adding the milk separately means it'll also help to take care of the cream, I don't know what you call it, skim or scum. There we go. This is going to produce a very watery batter. The batter is going to be nothing like your typical cake batter. It is actually going to be watery, and that's how it is supposed to be, because it does actually work out that way. And finally, just a little bit, about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Okay, and I've checked and double checked. No, I'm not missing any ingredients this time, not like butter or anything like that. So maybe about that much. Yeah. And now we just mix away. So yeah, believe it or not, this is about the right consistency here. I don't believe that extra butter I added will ruin this in any way. As I said, it is actually supposed to have a consistency like this, and I'm not seeing any more pumpkin seeds, so I think we are good this time. I think I am seeing one or two little bits of skin. That's all right. I'll live with that. Okay. Given a choice, I would still prefer to use the skin in my pie, but I already told you that story. So, there we go. It's all coming together nicely. And what's more, there we go. The pumpkin, yeah, I mean, we see a little bits maybe of, pumpkin guts, but this is all going to bake together in the pie. That's why I'm still not worried about it at all. As I said, I have made this before. Okay. Now, from here, I do believe, we are just about ready to get this into the oven. So, stir. The filling will be very runny and soupy. It will not thicken very much when you stir it. This is exactly correct. You're not making a mistake. The custard will thicken when it bakes in the oven. Okay, so that means we are about ready now to pour in our filling. Let's try not to spill it, shall we? Or shall I? It means we very carefully put this in. There we go. And as you can see, it just fits, even though the crust shrunk a little bit. And there we are. Now the other fun part, of course, is getting this thing into the oven. So I will let you see that. That way, if I spill it all over the place, you will be witness to it. And let's do this nice and slow. If anybody remembers a Flintstones episode, nice and slow, see? That's the way to do it. Nice and slow. All right. Hope that didn't just damage that cable there. Okay, let's get this in. And very carefully. Okay, we are good. Slowly, and we're done. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I've got to set the timer once again for 15 minutes. It is 8:38. 8:38 already? Wow. 8:38, 8:48, 8:53. Turn the temperature down to 350. Oi. Anyway, now let's do two other things here. One is I've got more comments to check on, and the other, since we've been doing some baking in cast iron, let's start playing with a little bit of cast iron here, such as the Lodge pie plate, or even the original Lodge skillet lid to their double Dutch oven. But let's check some comments, and then where did I put my mouse? There it is. Oh yeah, now I better put this milk and cream back in the fridge. Sorry. Always one more thing. Just 1 second. Just got to get these over here. And I don't believe there's anything else that's perishable. Just these eggshells and seeds, which I will toss. Oh, I know, you can make roasted pumpkin seeds with those. Yes, you can. Okay. This goes in the sink. And now, at last. Thank you for waiting on all of this, folks. Whew. Okay. Well done getting it back in the oven. Yeah, you made it without spilling. Yeah, that's what I meant. Nice and slow. I use that skillet lid to make pizza in, and I don't blame you at all for that. So I always taste the batter before I put in the eggs. You can adjust the spicing there now. You're right. I should have thought of that, and I apologize there. Papa, you can come to Franklin Parish. Okay, have you ever used a little molasses in your pumpkin pie? I have not, It sounds pretty darn good because, of course, molasses is pretty sweet, and that's what you use to make brown sugar with. So, using molasses, it doesn't sound like a bad idea, and I probably wouldn't mind trying it maybe the next time I make this pie. If I have a bottle of nutmeg in my shop and my hunting and fishing gear. Never had a Hubbard squash. I will have to try. Oh, yes, that's right. You can use a squash instead of pumpkin because pumpkin is a squash, of course, and just basically use the same recipe and make a squash pie. Hello, Pawpaw Dan. Just getting in from checking on Mama. She's been under the weather today. Well, of course, she comes first, and I do hope everything's doing good. I have cinnamon sticks older than my fur kids, but I'm out of black peppercorns. Yes, I tend to go through pepper pretty quickly as well. Difference between fresh ground pepper and pre-ground is massive. So are all the rest of the spices. So definitely. So if you get a cut, put nutmeg on it to stop the bleeding. Well, I will have to give that a try and see how that works out. How did you get into cast iron? What do you do for a living? Says Sam. I work a full-time job, and I've told my story before about getting into cast iron, that it was kind of like a compensation for some crazy things going on in my life in the year 2010, and I will not forget that, partly because I logged it all on Facebook. So that's why I know that December 15th each year for me is my cast iron anniversary. That's the date I cooked in a cast iron pan for the very first time, 2010. And we will celebrate it again, or I'll celebrate it again this coming December 15th. Okay. But as I said before, well, as you can see, what I'm doing now is getting baked, doing some cast iron baking this week. Because I've done my best to try a little bit of everything, and I enjoy these, and I enjoy baking in cast iron. In this case, again, pies. I've made apple pie before. I've made pecan pie at least a couple of times. Pumpkin pie, as I said, I made this recipe 10 years ago, and I'm mad at myself that it's taken this long, not 10 years, but it has been at least a few years since I made a pumpkin pie. So that's one reason why I wanted to do this tonight, get back into this. And why not use the Lodge cast iron baking pan? I could have done that. I could have done it the typical way and made two 9-inch pies rather than one big pie. But of course, one big pie naturally is really an attention getter and a showstopper. So I decided to go with what I know. But as you said, you do use these skillet lids here because, again, this of course is the cover for the Lodge double Dutch oven, and it does make a great skillet. But it's also shaped in such a manner that long before Lodge finally released their own cast iron pie plate, I was using this to make pies because you can make a great pie in this nice rounded skillet here. But then, of course, just going on, what's it now? 3 years, I think, 3 years ago. 4 years ago, I think it was 2018, Lodge introduced their bakeware line where they made cast iron versions of a whole bunch of things that, well, have since been readily available in your kitchen. Like a cast iron pie plate, for instance, or the casserole dish, or the flat pizza pan. Those are all things that really Lodge had never made before, and I, for one, am glad they made it because, yeah, I splurged and got this cast iron pie plate, even though I have more than enough skillets, and I have definitely made pies in skillets before. But what can you say? It's like, I don't know if you could, for some people, a cast iron pie plate is a luxury. For other people, it's a necessity. If you do a lot of baking, for instance, I mean, you would certainly consider a pie plate to be a necessity, even though you probably already have at least one cast iron skillet in your kitchen, and you could certainly make a pie in your cast iron skillet. And yet, nonetheless, you have to have a pie plate. Well, that's how it is here, too. Of course, at the same time as well, when Thanksgiving comes around and I have to make more than one pie, a pumpkin pie and apple pie, then I am going to need at least two. Well, of course, I have two now, not to mention more than one skillet. So if you've got a big collection, It's really the best thing to do is look for excuses to use this. And I'm definitely going to use this actually. I still need to make an apple pie this fall. I've been so busy moving into my home. And John Agan, been on a carnival squash kick lately, or Shadow Walker XM. For some reason, I really don't like nutmeg. Well, everybody has their own tastes. I mean, you can't deny that. So, we had 4 neighbors and friends. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Papa Dan. My condolences. Christine Borgatti, I have a loaf pan, and I always cook meatloaf in it. Oh, there you go. I mean, the loaf pan, of course, you can make a meatloaf, or you can make a bread in it, like a pumpkin bread, for instance, or banana bread, or even bread, wheat bread. Because that's the nice thing about having a loaf pan like that. So definitely, if you have a lot of use for it, go ahead and get it. Rick Stumba, I just bought a 12-inch enamel skillet from Aldi for $18.99. Nice. Can cast iron get a rancid smell, RC Doodles, if not used often? Yes, it can. I mean, that is one of the drawbacks of using bare cast iron. I mean, yes, cast iron is not perfect. It's nearly perfect. But there are problems that you do have to compensate for. One of which is the fact that, yes, the seasoning can go rancid if you don't use your cast iron for a long period of time. And here, of course, comes into the big argument of what to season your cast iron with, because you know how it goes. Oh, you have to use flaxseed oil. Oh, you have to use bacon grease. Well, I always use lard. And that argument has been going on and on and on. I will say one thing at least. After initially seasoning my cast iron in the oven and getting it nice and dark, for regular seasoning, I use my cast iron, then I wash it out, heat it on the stove, and then give it a very thin coating. And here's the thing, I give it a coating of Crisco. Most people use a coating of maybe a couple of drops of vegetable oil or olive oil. What I've found is that the vegetable oil and olive oil will work fine, but after a few days, yes, it can go rancid and get sticky. On the other hand, with Crisco, I've found it can take weeks or even months before a pan can reach that point. And then they ask, what do you do then? Well, what I do then is I just break it out and start cooking in it, because that will freshen up the seasoning. And then, of course, when I'm done, I can wash it and give it a fresh coat. If it's rancid, I myself found that I do not have to strip the whole pan and re-season it all over again. As I said, just take it out and cook it and start using it. And that will help freshen up the seasoning. The thing about cast iron, of course, is that, yes, I say that even if the seasoning is rancid, because you figure when you use a cast iron pan, the first thing you're doing is heating it up, either on the stove top or in the oven. And you've got to heat it to a lot higher than the 165 degrees necessary to kill any surface bacteria or anything like that. So you are sterilizing the pan as you heat it up, because typically you're going to heat your pan to what? 300, 400, 500 degrees. So yes, that pan is going to be very hot, but as I said, any contamination or natural bacteria or anything like that, that has all been killed. And that's why I'm not worried about rancid oil, because as far as I know, rancid oil seasoning, it does not turn into some kind of toxic chemical or anything like that. And I certainly haven't died from it. And I don't think I've heard of anybody else doing that as well. So if it starts to, as you said, give off an odor after a few days, take it out and use it. Cook some bacon, cook some burgers, cook some pancakes, just use it. And that will help keep the seasoning fresh, and that should take care of that problem as well. Having a collection as big as mine makes it difficult to use all my pans on a regular basis, and that's why I appreciate that Crisco takes a while to go rancid. Do lots of baking to build great seasoning. Biscuits, cornbread, roasted veggies, etc. Yes, exactly. So Louisiana has alligators, not crocodiles. Crocodiles are in Africa, not USA, and I like fried gator. Oh yeah, there's the argument there between alligators and crocodiles. Now, either way, you just call them gators. Um, okay, I don't put anything on mine, and it's just fine, says Corey Clark. RT Scott, I always use Crisco. Works good for me. Exactly. So, depends on what you like. No two are the same. Hopefully, the coming week, yes. Okay. So, well, what can we say? I mean, next week, of course, is Halloween. And that's one reason why I've been doing all this pumpkin stuff, because the pumpkins are out, and they're cheap, and I like pumpkin. I think pumpkin is very tasty, and I love finding excuses to do things I have not tried before. So that's why too many people, not I am not saying anybody here in this chat, but too many people in general have only two uses for a pumpkin: pumpkin pies, like we're doing tonight, or jack-o'-lanterns, period, the end. Which is a shame, because, as I said, pumpkin is delicious. I mean, that's why pumpkin spice is so popular. And it's a squash, and again, you can use it in a whole bunch of recipes. As I mentioned already, I've got that. Did that simple pumpkin mashed potatoes. I've just made a pumpkin pie. You can make a pumpkin bread, which is essentially a zucchini bread where you use pumpkin instead. And there's so many other ways. I know as well many vegetarian dishes use pumpkin puree as a meat substitute. And well, all the better to them, all more power to them for that. So there's no reason not to go out and try a pumpkin. And anyway, as I said before, even the pumpkin skin is delicious, and I, for one, have no problem at all with eating the skin. So let me see. Yeah, here's a little. Actually, why not? Here's a little piece of skin that I just peeled off the pumpkin tonight. Nom nom nom. Okay, I did exaggerate a little bit, but I like pumpkins. I like the skins. Just have to chew it. Here we go. Okay. Where was I? Let's see what we have now. I haven't heard that before, but I don't go to Florida very often. The Everglades. Oh, I guess you're talking about the gators that are all over the place in Florida. Or Cynthia Wesley says, "Come to Louisiana. Our hunters use them as target practice." DJC, personally, I use vegetable oil, but I use my cast iron almost every single day, so I don't have any problem. Well, there you go. The best way to keep your pan in shape is to use it. RC Doodles, it happened with my vintage cornstick pan, which I don't use as often as my daily use skillet. Yeah, great info. Well, thank you very much. But yeah, all you have to do then, if the seasoning has gone rancid on that cornstick pan, take it out and use it. Even if you don't do anything, stick it in the oven and just bake the pan itself at like 400 to 500 degrees for an hour. That of course will burn or carbonize the seasoning right there. Or even just that, just give it a very thin wipe down, very, very light wipe down of something like Crisco, and then just bake it in the oven, because again, you're reseasoning it. Or make cornbread with it. As they said, excuse me. I think that's skin coming up. But yeah, just make cornbread with it, and that will help keep the seasoning fresh. Okay. The skin can be a bit chewy. Yeah, there's no denying that. I will not deny that. But the skin is not, I don't have a problem eating the skin. It's not as bad as the skin on some vegetables. So as I said, I have no problem there. But Stumbout made pumpkin soup from scratch one time. Came out great. Christine Brigada, I was surprised how good pumpkin skin is. I've had it sliced baked pumpkin. Yeah, it's best, I find, when it's roasted. Gives it a nice nutty flavor to it. I would love to experience Louisiana. So would I, actually, now that you're saying that. Pumpkin pudding, soup turnovers, or coffee creamer. Excuse me. All really good. Give it to your dog if they get the hurt. Oh, yeah. Okay. Plain cooked pumpkin, not pie filling. There's a load of sweet pumpkin varieties. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and that's the nice thing, of course. Unfortunately, at least after Halloween is over, the pumpkins are still going to be in use, but then, of course, they're going to be, at least the supermarkets anyway, are going to be turning over towards Thanksgiving. And that's not a bad thing either. So that means we'll still have pumpkins, at least to make for pies. Meanwhile, the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins will go on sale dirt cheap, and you might even pick one or two of those up. You can eat a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. I've done it. I think it's maybe, if anything, I suppose the flavor might be a little less intense with a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin because, of course, they're bred as jack-o'-lanterns, not as pie pumpkins, but they're completely edible, and there's nothing wrong with eating a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. Of course, that's just it. Since pie pumpkins are made for eating, that's why the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins have these huge hollow spaces in the center, whereas the pie pumpkins have much less space in the center. So just really pretty much get whatever your preference is. But yeah, Halloween is almost here. For the record, this coming Halloween, I'm thinking of I'm going to make a project during the day anyway. Break out my Bayou Classic 4-gallon Dutch oven and propane burner and do a nice jambalaya right there in my yard because I can. This is going to be my very first time on my own property taking out the big burner and roast and a cast iron cauldron and cooking up a big cauldron full of a great witch's potion, aka jambalaya. And hopefully the neighbors will see it too, because I'm going to have to foist them off this jambalaya after I make it. So, excuse me, yeah, definitely was that skin. But yeah, that's actually something I'm looking forward to doing. And yeah, I should definitely record that too as best I can. Louisiana is so hot and humid in the summer, can't even get dry after a shower. They're very tasty and very digestible. Yeah, except for this little bit that I appear to be choking on. What are you all drinking in your side of the creek? Well, excuse me. Okay, that's enough. I think I better get some water here. Sorry for the delay. I think that little piece of pumpkin skin damn it, just happened to get the gag reflex in the back of my throat. And boy, that's annoying. You know what's really annoying? It's when it happens for no reason at all. Literally. You just breathe in one time, and a tiny little bit of saliva hits the gag reflex in the back of your throat, and you start choking for no reason at all. Much better. Definitely speaking from experience there. I visited Luke. Excuse me. Yikes! Gotta turn down this pumpkin. 8:59. Okay. Now we bring this down, and I better hurry. Again, I hope I haven't caused any real problems by doing this. Sorry. In fact, I'm going to cheat a little bit and open up the oven just so that I can help disperse some of the heat. Yeah, I was afraid of that. I think I burned a little bit of the outer crust. Boy, this pie is definitely living up to the name Chaos, that's for sure. I should have set an alarm. Oh well. The pie itself, actually... let me turn on the oven light. Because I can! Haha! And let's show you what the pie looks like right now. Um, as you can see, it looks pretty good right now, though. Unfortunately, the very top part of the crust does appear to have burned a little bit, but the pie looks just fine. So there should not be any problem at all. Unfortunately, I'm supposed to bake this for 60 minutes, which means it is definitely not going to be done when this live video is over. But I will have to show a shot of the finished pie when it comes out of the oven, and I will be happy to do so, because that's one other thing. If you've read the recipe, in my case anyway, especially when doing a big pie like this, finally, I think it's clearing up my throat. If you've read the recipe, you see when the pie comes out of the oven, it's actually still has not finished baking, and in fact, it is still going to have ripples, and it's going to look like it is not finished yet. But I've learned from experience that is also correct, and there's nothing to worry about. Once it comes out of the oven, got to simply set it down on a trivet, because it's going to be hot, and then let it settle for at least an hour, preferably 2 hours, at which point then you'll have a nice solid pumpkin pie. So what we really need with this recipe more than anything else, there it goes. Definitely, that was the skin. What we really need more than anything else is patience. Fortunately, I like to think I have some of that. Need some of those crust covers. Those are dandy little tools. Yeah, I probably should have put some foil around the edges, you say. Yeah, tell us again how good pumpkin skin is. Yeah, all the coughing. I understand. I know. Sure does sound suspicious, doesn't it? But that, unfortunately, was just bad little coincidence, where, as I said, that pumpkin skin just happened to go against the gag reflex. Because look at this. Here's another piece of pumpkin skin. Look what I'm doing. Nom, 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 nom. Yeah, is he really that stupid? Don't answer that. Okay. I need food. I'm still in bed suffering from chronic sleep deprivation. Well, then you should certainly go to bed, Marissa. I don't stay up just on my account. Give us a follow-up on how it looks in the AM. I'm definitely going to do that. And hello, Nicious River Catfishing. What's the pie looking like? Well, let me give you another sneak preview so far. Let me turn that oven light back on. Oh, it was on. Okay, let me turn that oven light on now. And let's take another look. So, on the whole, it's actually not looking too bad, I would say. It's really a matter of letting it bake, as you know, until the insides are done as well as the outside. So, fortunately, I'm not entering this pie into a contest. So, even though, yet again, I made a mistake or two, I'm still looking forward to having some pumpkin pie, because the major part of the pie, you know, the filling, is still going to turn out just fine, and I'm not worried at all about that. And how's my Texas friend tonight? Have you ever made a sour cream pumpkin pie? No, I have not. I haven't even heard of a sour cream pumpkin pie, but as I said, all of these suggestions, they all sound pretty good. Someone else suggested using molasses in the pie as well. So all of these are things that I would very much like to try. I'm not averse to trying new things, and I would certainly like to see. I should probably look up this recipe and see how it turns out. So froze, Papa Dan, I froze. Okay. Anybody else? Can anybody? Are we having problems again? Are you able to see, folks? Can anybody just answer? Can you hear me, or does it look like it's locked up? Do you top your pie? You certainly can. Not before it goes into the oven, though. It's okay. No video issues for me. No freeze here. Okay. And then I'm sorry to say, Papa Dan, maybe you might have to refresh your browser, or maybe close your browser and open it up again. But thank you very much, everybody. However, once the pie is out and it's cooled down and it's solid, you can, of course, top it with whatever you want. Whipped cream or pretty much anything else. So I find the taste of the pie to be just fine by itself. But of course, if you want to add your own whipped cream or other sweeteners, you can certainly do so. After all, it's your pie. So why not? The only topping for pumpkin pie is whipped cream. Yes, exactly. So not like apple pie where people actually put cheddar cheese on it. I've tried that once or twice with apple pie, and I don't know. For myself, I think it's something I would still have to get used to, I'm afraid. So, um, 4 cups of mashed baked potatoes, brown sugar, spice, and a pinch of salt. Yeah, okay. Well, I will give it a try. Val, I will definitely give it a try. Okay, good. All right, William Boudin, River. Some people put bourbon in their pumpkin pie. Yeah, actually, I have heard of that too. And yeah, that is one thing about baking is that baking, a little bit of alcohol will certainly improve whatever it is you're baking. Or as Julia Child likes to say, I love cooking with wine. Sometimes I even use it in the food. No arguments there. And of course, that comes down again to the fact that really you can make a pie or a cake or really just about any piece of cast iron you want. And even though this pie plate here is nice to have, it's not absolutely essential, although I'm glad I have this. I remember now, I have a video on my channel where I used my bundt pan to make an apple pie, and that is another one of those things I'm proud of how it turned out. I don't know if you could make a bundt pumpkin pie, only because I don't see how you could get it out of the pan without it completely falling apart, I'm afraid. But actually, there's a thought now that I'm thinking of it. Speaking of baking, maybe the next time I make a pumpkin pie, maybe I should make it in this. Make a whole bunch of tiny little individual, I don't know what you would call them, pumpkin tarts perhaps. So that that would be interesting in itself, at least I think so. Maybe I'm thinking already, maybe I'll do that around Thanksgiving. It's actually starting to sound interesting now that I've mentioned that. I ordered 2 Yellowstone lodge skillets, Dutton Ranch. I understand Yellowstone is a company. They're like a clothing line. I actually had not heard of Yellowstone in this area of the country. So, if someone would like to describe Yellowstone, please feel free to do so. Because I presume they're not just talking about Yellowstone National Park, unfortunately. So. Fancy hostess pies. Yeah, I could do that. And actually, maybe use a more regular pie crust and actually cover it up so that you have a complete pumpkin pie that you can actually take out and eat. Well, yeah, all of that could certainly be done. So, definitely going to have to do some experimenting. Pumpkin and orange. Maybe. I don't know how you would have time to bake if you work full time. Well, yeah, there is that, Marissa. I mean, yes, I do work full time. I work 8:30 to 5 each day, in fact. And one of the reasons I got into this cooking in the first place was really stress relief. And in most cases, it's certainly helps because even though I've made the choice of doing these live videos here, and so as you can see, I've been running around tonight. That's perfectly fine. It's still a stress relief from work because once this video is done, I'm just going to clean up my mess, and then it'll be time for bed. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to that too, especially since we still have a little ways to go. I will say that. Yellowstone is like Falcon Crest with more action and ranchers in Montana. Oh, it's a TV show. Sorry about that. I was not aware that it's actually like a TV show, but then again, I don't watch TV regularly. Haven't done so in about 10 years or so. Still, I'm guessing the folks from Yellowstone then probably licensed it to Lodge. So I'm sure Lodge made a nice penny from that. And well, then more power to them. That's how marketing goes. Video frozen before your comment. I don't know how. Sorry. Boudin is basically, boudin. Oh, yeah. Boudin is basically rice and shredded meat and some seasonings put into sausage casings. One of the better foods in life. Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember. That's one of those Louisiana recipes, in fact. One of many things I still have to try, unfortunately. Kimberly Miller just got the 2 Yellowstone cast iron pans from Lodge today in the mail with the Sugar Skull pan. Well, there you go. And from what I gather, I've seen hints from Lodge that now that the Day of the Dead has come and gone, I'm thinking that they may be shutting down that Sugar Skull pan, which is a shame in itself because it's a nice design, but hey, there you go. They might bring it back next year, or you may very well have yourself a collector's item. I get the feeling, though, that the skull cake pan is something they're probably going to produce on a regular basis because, of course, it has less of a Day of the Dead theme to it than it does really Halloween and this time of year. So I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing more of the Lodge skull cake pan. The Sugar Skull pan, I don't know yet. As I said, if you own the Sugar Skull pan, well, you can hold on to it because maybe by this time next year, in fact, you might very well have yourself a collector's item. It's hard to say. Lodge has really been catering to the collector's market lately, in case you hadn't noticed, putting up these pans with all of these fancy designs on them. But of course, it's partly because it makes them money. However, nonetheless, even Lodge can't tell exactly what will become a hit and what will not. I did a video only a couple of weeks ago, for instance, about their Made in America series of pans. And my opinion is that the 2018 and the 2020 Made in America pans are indeed going to be collector's items just because of the circumstances surrounding them. But even if you just get the later Made in America skillet or the later Rosie the Riveter skillet, well, they are still very nice to own as well. I mean, unless you're a speculator and if you really think you can profit from collector's items in the cast iron market, well, I'm not interested in that. And if that's what you do, well, good luck to you. I've seen enough antique dealers doing that. That's why they grab up everything they can with the Griswold logo on it, just so that they can jack up the price sky high and try to make a profit from it. So, I mean, you better believe they're doing the same thing with the Lodge collector's item pans as well. For instance, earlier this year, Lodge made the Lady Liberty, the Walking Liberty $50 skillet. They made it for Cracker Barrel, for instance, and I thought it was a beautiful pan, and I was more than happy to get one of those for that reason. Also reminded me of my mom, and I'm glad to own the Walking Liberty skillet. You can bet that pretty much the day that Walking Liberty skillet went on sale at Cracker Barrel, speculators were selling it on eBay for 3 times the price. We're talking like $75 for a pan that you could buy at Cracker Barrel. Of course, now that Lady Liberty skillet has gone out of print, like it does every year for Cracker Barrel. And so about the only way now you can get the Lady Liberty skillet is from the speculators. So if you want to pay $100 now for a skillet that came out 6 months ago, for instance. And that's how they do their business. On the other hand, if you get these pans for their design just because they are nice designs and they are nice to own, well, again, I'm very much in support of you, and I'm very glad to hear, for instance, that you have the Sugar Skull skillet or the Yellowstone skillets, for instance. I mean, those they are nice designs on them. Is trouble okay? They are nice designs on them, and they certainly do make good pieces to display as well as to use. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with these collector's item skillets. I just say that I would rather get one of these skillets just because I want to own them or have them rather than to try to resell them and make a profit. But that's just me. There are other people, of course, who really make a pretty good living like that. $100. Go and look yourself on eBay, and you'll certainly see it without any difficulty. I'd like to see a Yellowstone Dutch oven with other series like Day of the Dead and the Wanderlust series. Yeah, that would be interesting. Wonder what kind of Dutch oven they would do with that. Now, I'm betting they might do a Dutch oven, just do a Dutch oven lid, right? Because it would probably be easier to produce than an entire big Dutch oven. So, of course, just a Dutch oven lid would be nice. I would certainly not disagree with that either. So, I just found an 8-quart Magnolite stock pot. Will it work okay for rice? Oh, congratulations, Dano Ozark. As folks here know, I have been crowing loudly about how much I enjoy my Magnolite Dutch oven and making that for rice or boiling water for pasta, either for that matter. Yeah, I really enjoy that Dutch oven for those reasons. And as such, if you've got a big Magnolite Dutch oven, go ahead and use it. And yeah, I think it's the best rice cooker that I have for that reason, because you can boil water in it, of course. And while you can do the same with cast iron, and I did so for years, I mean, there is, of course, the question of boiling water affecting the seasoning on a cast iron pan. And as such, I rather use the aluminum pan for precisely that reason. So yes, go ahead and use it, and yes, make rice in that 8-quart Dutch oven, and I'm sure once you do that, you will probably not want to make rice in any other way. I've seen a number of professional YouTube chefs making various rice dishes, and just about all of them say the same thing. They all recommend getting a fancy rice cooker, and I am still reluctant to do so, even though I do enjoy rice, only because I found it is really easy to make rice in a Dutch oven. So but again, that's just me. I'm sure if I was actually producing rice, like say for commercial reasons, I may change my mind. But I'm not. So at this point, I'm still happy with using my Dutch oven for making rice. At work, guys, are still listening. Hello, Louis J. Cast Iron Cooking. Yeah. Well, I can only reassure you, Louis, as well, that I will be showing a video of this pie when it's finished. Let me get another look for here, and I better remind myself as well not to leave the oven turned on all night. Otherwise, well, I will not be happy. But here is how it is turning out right now. So little by little, I do believe, if you'll notice, there is a bit of a difference in the texture now between the outside and the inside. So I'd say it is actually starting to finally bake. And by the time that that thicker consistency reaches the inside, it will be done. So we are actually doing pretty good here. Let me turn off the oven light one last time. We waiting on your pie. Yes, exactly. Rice carbs work slower than potato carbs. Well, be that as it may, all I know is that I have trouble giving up on carbs, unfortunately. So, and that is something I have to work on. Nonetheless, I'm glad I made that potato and pumpkin rice, that pumpkin mashed potato dish, and I'm quite happy with that. I'm also shocked that that thing has just taken off on my channel and had over 7,000 views in only a few hours. So it's got to be because of potatoes. I find that potatoes are pretty popular on YouTube, and I'm going to have to do another potato dish, especially for that reason. So research studies say if you cook and reheat rice, pasta, potato, the sugar spike is much lower than when fresh made and still warm. Well, I will have to consider that as well. So thank you for saying that. Okay. Anyway, doing so far so good, as I mentioned before. Okay, one other thing, I guess. Halloween once again, which of course is this coming Monday. I'm looking forward to trying to see what trick or treating is going to be like here in this new neighborhood. I think I told you the saga of what happened last year with my on Halloween, and yeah, I'm going to see what happens this year because I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to break out a cast iron cauldron, fill it with candy, and hope kids show up at my door. That's what I wanted to do last year, and I ended up getting only 3 kids. So it's interesting how the stores are still telling everybody to stock up on candy because, of course, you're spending money that way, even though so many places just don't seem to do trick or treating anymore. Most parents these days seem to just take their kids to the mall for trick or treating. Or even worse, there are some towns now that have essentially ruined trick or treating in order to protect the children and make it safe. Meaning that a town I was living in before, well, about 2 moves ago, they decided a number of years ago, as it turned out, that they were going to protect the children. And to do that, they announced that trick or treating in their town would take place on a Thursday afternoon. Yeah, during workday, during daylight, yes, but also during work hours. They cordoned off several blocks of that area, and basically kept traffic out. And that was when parents were supposed to take their kids out trick or treating at like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. So those of us who work full time and would really like to enjoy having kids come to our doors on Halloween night, yeah, not to mention the entire rest of the town as well. The trick or treating was essentially ruined, unfortunately. So I can only hope that I get some kids here because I would love to be able to, as I said, have a cauldron full of candy and let the kids enjoy themselves. And that way, well, there we go. I get to make some smiles that way. That's really what I want to do on Halloween more than anything else. And I think that's why during the day I want to get out my big 4-gallon cauldron and make a big jambalaya. Hopefully the neighbors will be interested. And there I go talking about myself again. All right. I've quit sugar, potatoes, and rice, and I still eat oats. Don't forget that like button. Well, thank you again for that. So, nonetheless, if you folks as well have ideas of how you use your cast iron on Thanksgiving, well, please feel free to comment on that. So, or likewise, even post on the comments of this video after it's done, since we are getting close to that time at this point. So, and once again, I can only thank you for being here. That's really have been saying. How's your roommate been doing? Well, I have to be honest and say that unfortunately there has not been much communication, regrettably, for personal reasons. And as I mentioned before, I don't get into things like that on the internet because it's really not something that I like to talk about online. Nonetheless, things are not doing too badly as far as I can tell. But that's about all I would know, I'm sorry to say. Okay, have you noticed any difference between an electric oven and gas oven, not the stovetop? Well, that's what I'm finding out right now. I'm thinking that this gas stove is probably going to heat this pie more thoroughly than the electric oven would, even though it's essentially the same thing, where basically you've got a heating element underneath, only now the heating element is gas rather than electric. But especially considering how well that gas stove heats up on the stovetop, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how well a pie baked in this gas stove will turn out. For that matter, you can only wonder what the Thanksgiving turkey is going to turn out like when baked in a gas oven, but it's something I'm definitely looking forward to. At this point, I don't know, and this is really going to be a learning experience, and I will find out pretty much the same time you do, I think. That's what happens when there is open borders. All right. We share your nostalgia. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, as I said, this really, the trick or treating is really for nostalgia more than anything else, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. I spatchcock my turkey in my large 17-inch with oysters, vegetables, and stuffing. Yeah, I mean, I know that spatchcocking will cook a turkey or a chicken very well, and there's really no reason not to do it that way. Except that I've had a lot of luck making a turkey with the traditional method. Nesh's rubber catfish, and I want a gas stove top, but unfortunately, no gas in my neighborhood. Yeah, time to get a tank. That's not a bad thing to do either. Our next door app here lets people sign up to show who's handing out treats. Well, that's something. I think I'll have to look into that and see if there is anybody in my neighborhood who actually does that. So thank you again for the advice on that. But I'd say we are getting into time at this point. A tree went down in my yard when the storm came through. um, well, so far I haven't had any problems here, I will say that. But nonetheless, as I said, I will definitely, when I take this out of the oven by about 10 o'clock, or it's 9:30 now. So when I take this oven out of the oven by about 10 o'clock or so, I will definitely show everybody how it's turned out. So I'm still looking forward to it, even though I did make a slight mistake, and I think the top edges of the crust are unfortunately a little burned. I'll just have to shave those off. That's all I can do. So. But thank you for sharing your time with me, as always, folks. I mean, even though I was rushing around making this pie, I'm looking forward to the results. And this really was actually a lot of fun, and that's why I enjoy doing this. As I said, I consider this to be stress relief because, once this is done, I'll be able to relax and go to bed. But I've said before that having you folks here watching and especially commenting, that's really what gives me a lot of enjoyment from these live videos. And I still can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here, especially the ones who seem to come back here every week. So thank you so much. The pie is going to take a while because I am going to, once it comes out of the oven, I am going to have to let it rest. I'll probably just I'll cover the pie, go to bed, in fact, and it will be ready when I get up in the morning. I set my alarm for 5 o'clock because, of course, I have to be ready for work. So by that time, there should definitely be a full-blown pumpkin pie. And, well, we will all see how it turned out. So, hello, R. Hughes. Yes, and I'm looking forward to you seeing here. So, what are you doing next week? Well, next week I'm going to be doing cast iron Wednesday, and we will see how it turns out. At this point, I'm open for ideas, quite frankly, because Halloween is going to be over. I think I've just had an idea, and I think I did this before. A couple of times now on Halloween and Easter, you know what I've done? I've taken my leftover candy, made a giant cookie, and mixed it all in. So, and we call that a garbage cookie, so that instead of chocolate chips, you actually have pieces of candy right there in the cookie. That sounds like a plan. And considering that Halloween is Monday and cast iron Wednesday is only 2 days after that, well, unless something else comes out, then we might very well look at bringing out old Stumpy again and making another giant cookie. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, okay, fruitcake would be good. We are getting into fruitcake season, too. That's the other thing. I enjoy making fruitcake. I love making fruitcake in cast iron. I made one on this live video last year, and I'm going to have to do it again this year, I guess, because when you've had a homemade fruitcake, you'll find that, yes, fruitcake is delicious, believe it or not. And having said that, I think we are about all set at this point. All I can do now is, as I said, clean up my mess here and get ready. Oh, yeah, and I'm sure you'll sleep well with the smell of pumpkin pie throughout the night, throughout the house, and I'm certainly looking forward to that. I hope the kids clean you out and you can't do the cookie. So do I. That would be a better result, I think. I would rather be able to share this with kids. But if not, well, then we will get a cookie. And definitely, having said this as well, Everybody else there, have yourself a good Halloween too. Make sure to find yourself a nice, sincere pumpkin patch and sit and wait in that pumpkin patch until the great pumpkin arises and flies through the air to bring toys to good little boys and girls all over the world. Have faith. I know I will. And having said that, though, as I said, thank you so much to everybody for being there. Put the pie where the cats can't get it. Oh yeah, exactly. I'm sure you're thinking of good old Trouble as well. We'll have to make sure that he doesn't decide to walk all over the pie before I have a chance to take a photo of it. But having said that, I think we are getting into that time now. So thank you everybody for showing up once again. And the best I could say is we will do this all again next week. I'll try to be a little less chaotic, and we will continue from there. And as always, I can only say, though, thank you once again for everybody. Thank you for showing up, and I will very much appreciate seeing you all next week. Have a good evening, everybody. See you next Wednesday.